There's no serious back.
Okay, if you just introduce yourself and your topic.
Alright, so this I have called Emotional Control 101 because what I'm trying to do this time is to keep it to about 15 minutes and hopefully continue this as a series in coming months. What I was going to initially talk about was a real world analog of Vulcan philosophy. Does everybody know who Vulcans are? In Star Trek, this is the species of...
that's what Yoda is, right?
That was a one troll for the role. Won't happen again, I'm sorry.
That's a cheap troll as well.
So, just as a preamble, how many of you actually believe that Vulcans are emotionless? Without emotions. How many of you believe that Vulcans are emotionless? They are not. They are actually a lot more emotional than human beings. Whereas human beings can function with our level of emotions. The fictional species of Vulcans cannot. They go crazy. And if you watch those episodes in Star Trek where they lose their control, they go way more crazy than human beings. So out of necessity, they have to develop methods of controlling emotions. Unfortunately, we don't have this. We don't have a subject called emotional control in school or university. We study everything else, but we don't learn how to control this very important part of our brain. Right? So that's what I initially wanted to get into, but since I wanted to keep it short, I am going to concentrate on one small area, which is the effects of intelligence on empathy. The reason I selected that was, by virtue of being here, a lot of you will probably fall into the upper quartile of people who are of intelligence, I would say. Right? But when you are intelligent, there comes certain baggage with it. And I think if you have hung around in our group, especially on Facebook, you would have noticed there's like a certain recurring motive of certain people who are very, very, in terms of intelligence, very endowed, but in terms of other things, somewhere else. So that's what I want.
Very diplomatic.
Yes, that's what I want to explore today. But first, so emotions. What are they? Do they represent some underlying fundamental truth? Are they something metaphysical, or are they just a control signal that we evolved to deal with the environment? Because a lot of people feel that emotions have some deeper truth, right? When you can't decide on something based on logic, a lot of people think that emotions follow your heart basically. Emotions give you some truth that you can't arrive at using logic. How many people believe this? Right. From those people I ask, if that is the case, if emotions can give us superior information to logic, why did we evolve a logical faculty in the first place? Why would we need it at all? We can just tell, if emotions give us superior knowledge, we can just continue with emotions.
What if emotion... Oh, was it a rhetorical question or...
No, go ahead.
Sorry, it was, wasn't it? What if emotions are a shorthand for subconscious thinking as well? Sometimes you have a gut feeling, you haven't pieced it together, but you're recognizing a pattern and you act on it. Then later you find you were correct, even though you didn't have all the data.
That is true. I need to address that in a future presentation actually. I was not prepared for that.
This time I got you!
That's one dimension of it, but raw emotions usually come from a certain part of the brain that is very primitive, that has been there a long time, that evolved to deal with only very basic things, like some predator chasing you or you getting hungry. But we live in a society today that's so complex that those systems don't work anymore. Right? So, if you were to ask me, I take a very materialistic view. Emotions are just a control signal. Our own brains are just control systems aimed at controlling our bodies, and this is just one signal. If you want to debate this, we can take it up for another day, but this is what I'm going to build on. So to me, those are emotions. I'm going to take one particular emotion in particular. What do you think empathy is? Not as a feeling. I mean, everybody knows what empathy is. When somebody gets hurt or somebody is in trouble, You feel something, that is what it is. But if you look at it from the perspective of a control signal, what is empathy? Why would it evolve in the first place? What advantage does that give?
Wouldn't it be a sort of a primeval move to connect with the other person on an emotionally vulnerable state to get them onto your side, so then all of a sudden from one person you become two people, and in future, if you're in trouble, that person that you just empathize with will always be on your side.
He's got a certain point. Sorry
He has a point.
to jump in, because there was an interesting thing where they did a couple of studies on chimpanzee politics within the groups, and they found, and the answer that they gave to that, based on what the study was, that empathy allows us to build alliances, and to at the same, so it allows us to strategize within groups. So if I know what you like, I know how to undermine you, and if I know what he likes, I know how to make alliances with him to undermine you, so that we can both get it. So it allows social kind of the social politics to work out.
So exactly. So it allows you to derive a much greater survival advantage by being a group working together than individuals. So this is a signal that causes you to cooperate with others, help others. It's just like pain signal. Like if something were to damage you, you feel pain, right? Empathy is exactly the same thing, except that you feel it in response to damage to somebody else. So people, gregarious species that feel empathy will survive a lot better than species that just live alone. So that's where this thing comes from. Just not a signal.
To take it forward, it's just also to reiterate, it also can be used competitively. It's been used. If I know what you, if I empathize with you, I can.
Yes.
And that it's been used for that actually.
And that actually ties into the next part.
Right.
This is also another emotion. Yeah.
For the sake of clarity, could you distinguish between empathy and sympathy?
Right. Sympathy, I would say, is a state of mind. Empathy is actually, even for sympathy, you have to have an intellectual grasp of, you have to think. You have to know what the person's plight is, but empathy is a raw, just like fear, empathy is a raw thing. You don't have to have a intellectual appreciation of it. You see somebody in trouble, you feel it, or you don't.
It's basically, for me, it's like sympathy and empathy. If you say, if somebody is like, mom's died or something, right? You say, oh, I'm so sorry, these are sympathies. You are sorry for her, right? But if you've also lost your mother and you say, oh my God, I really know how you're feeling, I'm so sorry. That's empathy, because you actually do know what you've walked a mile in relationship, you know what they're feeling, so you can actually sort of relate to them on that level. Whereas even if your mom hasn't died, you know that it's a terrible thing to do as a parent. So you'll be, I feel sorry for you. I can't actually feel what you're feeling and be that emotionally involved in what you're going through, but I'll still be sorry for you. So sympathy would be that, and empathy would be that on a...
And empathy is the larger set. So sympathy could be a portion of it. You could feel sympathetic towards somebody, but I can be empathetic to your happiness as well. So empathy is just relating to your context, to your feelings.
So I mean, you can look at it from, if you take dictionary definitions, if you take sociological definition, and if you take mine, it will differ a bit. Or what you take in common usage, it will be a bit different. But basically what I use the word to mean here is a signal that we feel in our brain which causes us to help each other if we live in a society. To me, that's where it originated from in the first place in evolution. So there's another component, this ego. We all understand in common usage what that means, but this also is a signal in the brain. Again, this only works in species that are gregarious, living in a cooperative society. Now, the society, ideally, all the members will be the same, right? Like in a,
Could you define ego, because that word has huge, like it's
I
got
can't
lots of
define
definitions.
it philosophically.
No. At least tell me what definition you're using. Only because it's got a lot of definitions in psychology.
I'm not using this in the same way as ego, superego. It's not a Freudian thing. I mean the thing that you feel. This is say your ego is threatened.
The
Somebody
self.
says something
The
like
self, the sense of self.
Yeah. If there was somebody here and suddenly challenges me and says, "What the fuck are you talking about? This is bullshit." The thing that gets threatened in me would be the ego. So I'm using it in that sense.
Sure.
So to me it's signal that evolved because in no society can you have individuals who are all equal, nor should you. Because if all were equal, all are equally vulnerable to threats. Sometimes you have, in a society you have different levels of ability, different specialization. You have hunters, you have gatherers, you have scouts who look out, then people who go out to fight. Even in our society we have different, this is what we call temperament. You put as well, but in tribes, some people become gatherers, some people become hunters, some people become scouts, so that. So automatically, no matter how much you try to keep things equal, a hierarchy will emerge. And when you have a hierarchical society, what happens is your position in hierarchy is important, right? You need to, the higher you are, the more survival advantages you get. So it pays for you to defend your position in your hierarchy. So this is a signal that causes you to do that. If you didn't have this, if you're a nice guy, you will, if you just had empathy, you will always end up at the bottom of the hierarchy. And your survival advantages will be low. You will die off, your genes will not make it to the next round. So if you're a social species, these two dimensions have to be there. One thing, empathy is the signal that causes you to cooperate with the rest of us, rest of your peers. Ego is the signal that causes you to compete. So you need both.
Isn't it less a requirement to be in the society and more like an outcome? Like in the case of the ego, if there was an individual who had a gene with less, I don't know, whatever signal that causes the ego to trigger, then they will, as you said, move down the hierarchy, and they're less likely to pass on that gene that has less capability of understanding ego, empathy, and then eventually it just like, isn't that one of the reasons why it's so prevalent in like social animals?
That's exactly prevalent. It gets selected.
Right.
So both of these things get selected, they counterbalance each other. So that's the idea. So okay, now we come to the interesting bit. There is an inverse relationship between power and empathy. Imagine a perfectly powerful being, or an entity or a species, or something that has evolved in such a way that absolutely need no help at all from any other species or member of the same species. That entity has no use for empathy, no use for ego. It doesn't need empathy because it doesn't need anybody else's help, it doesn't need cooperation. It can look out for itself, it can find its own food, it can defend itself from anything in the environment. So it has no use for any of these things. Now imagine what happens when members of a gregarious species rise up in the hierarchy. The higher they go, the need, again the same thing happens, right? The more they become powerful, the less they need other members of the same species.
Disagree. No, and I disagree because in terms of, I would say normally your definition of power here might be very different. So you're talking about defining power in a very independent way. So for example, powerful in the way that you can do everything. But I don't think in a lot of social groups people have that opportunity. And leaders, if anything, are more dependent on the recognition and status given to them by people below, within the group. So I think that I'm going to even argue that a person whose power depends on the group's recognition and status is more required to have more empathy, which is why you have charismatic leaders, which is why leaders who can relate and you are drawn to them, and you find that charisma, a huge something that we respond to. So I would probably disagree, and almost to the point of even disagreeing almost completely with you on that.
But is that because they empathize with the followers, or the followers empathize with them?
They are able to win followers. they are able to do so
However,
with.
I think-
However, there's been there was a study which I'm going to reference but can't back up. I can't remember the details of the study, where they found that rich people tend to be assholes because they simply care less about the problems we
The
have.
Harvard study.
Yeah,
Because they
Yes.
interact less with the problems we have, so they
So
care
I'm
less
sure,
about
I'm sure
us
he has a
having the
point.
problems.
I'm sure he has a
Yeah.
point, but if we boil down all the complexities and think like a very simple society of maybe few dozen individuals, you get this dynamic. But when it's larger, I'm sure what you said also comes into play. But again, we have to talk about that. There's a little bit of that towards the end of the presentation.
Yeah, if you have $10 million in the bank
So-
account, you just retire. You just be a dictator the rest of your life and you're fine.
But that may not be power. That may be a certain type of power that may not require other people. You're right.
But
Maybe you're
that's
right.
the closest defined to not needing anyone else to feed you or to protect you.
Yeah. No, that's true, and that may be the case. So that's the case where money would actually would allow you to do that, to actually be completely removed.
I'm actually
But-
talking about what the kind type of power that he's talking about.
Yeah.
So you're so capable that you don't need anybody else. You can treat anybody else in any way you want, and there are no consequences.
Like Superman or Black Adam.
So what you're saying is like the individual strength, this whole relationship, your definition of power is the individual
Throw in
strength,
some
right?
comic book references.
It can be
Like the
many
individual
things.
standing in whatever position they're in the world, like wealth
Let's take as an example financial power.
Okay,
So you
basically-
don't need to be as cooperative with, let's say if you're a CEO versus if you're like a normal employee. You can afford to be less cooperative the higher you go.
Yeah, to basically benefit. So what I mean is your definition is more about the individual standing, and his is more like the
Right,
social
right.
standing. And the social standing is like what matters when you're trying to reproduce, which is like all like evolution is like a symptom. Like all these things are a symptom of people being more likely to reproduce with certain traits. So like an empathetic person might have a better social standing, therefore more likely to reproduce and pass on the empathetic genes.
But if you have more money, also you're very much more likely to reproduce.
Yeah, but it's hard. That might also be why we have powerful people as well.
So let's keep it simple. I mean, what happens is when you make a social group large, all these other different types of dynamics come into play which are too complex. So let's keep it to a simple, the most atomic type of society. In my view, these are the things that happen. So let's not look at the more complex mechanisms yet, right? So, like I said, the higher up you are in the hierarchy, the more actual raw power you have, the less dependent you are on other people, the less your empathy pathways, so to speak, in your brain, which is a neural network, activate. And we know, since our brain is a neural network, we know for a fact pathways that are less used atrophy, just like our muscles. Okay? And this, remember, is a hypothesis of mine, actually more a conjecture of mine. People are free to disagree, because I'm not taking this from any book or an article. This is part of what I believe. This to me explains why such a huge percentage of politicians and really rich people actually clinically qualify as psychopaths. Not because no, I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking.
That's true.
Right? So it's not just because, as a traditional view goes, that it's that type of people who get attracted to that type of business or field. It's just that even normal people, once they go into it, the more powerful they become, the less their empathy pathways activate, they atrophy, and they automatically start becoming that kind of person. So it works the other way too. Okay, so those, most of that were not directly relevant to the type of people we are, at least for the type of person I am. Right? Right, so before that, the two things I said. One thing is the erosion of empathy pathways because they don't get used. The other thing, the other way around, is misfiring of the ego pathways. In like primitive society, ego is important because your social standing is important, because if you don't have it, you don't get fed. Your children don't get fed, you die. But now, if you look at anybody who has worked in like a company or something, there's misfiring of these ego pathways in some people, even if their ego is threatened in such a way that there's no consequence to anything. They suddenly react, and they basically cause problems in the group. Right? So these are two things that take place as a result of going up in the social hierarchy. Basically, effects of power on an individual. Now, here's the thing that's applicable to us, especially to somebody like me. And for a species like humans, intelligence is the most important form of power. This for me is the most
Define, please.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say
this is
that.
where this is where the debate is going to start, right?
Yeah.
I was waiting for it.
Intelligence for human beings, intelligence is power.
knowledge.
Because this may not have been true 200 years ago, 300 years ago, but today it is true. And in another 100 years, it will be even more true. Basically, the nerds will rule the world, the jocks not so much. Okay, another.
Whenever you're ready to take disputes to that, I'll throw a dispute to that.
Yeah.
Right.
We might save it for the end.
Right. Okay. My premise is this. The same thing that happens to people with monetary power tends to happen to people with power as a result of intelligence. There was another article that somebody shared, I think, where it said, if you think that you're surrounded by idiots, you are probably the asshole.
Oh God damn it.
And this is kind of personal to me because I used to be that asshole. Right. So it's kind of a personal subject for me as well. When the more intelligent you are, the less use you have for average intelligence people. And I believe that the same thing happens, maybe not with everybody, but there is a tendency for that thing to happen where your empathy pathways don't activate with respect to people who you think are your intellectual inferiors. And if this thing keeps happening and people respect you more and more because you're intelligent, it will come to a point where your brain will be structured in the same way that maybe a CEO of a multi-billion company would be, but in different ways. But it doesn't happen to everybody. But what I'm saying is there's a tendency for that to happen.
So that's why Rajiv Vijay Singha is an asshole.
No, he's just an asshole.
He's just an
Yeah, he's an anomaly, he's an outlier.
For the record,
For the record.
for Nerds On, we just want to agree on that right now and table that.
Rajiv Vijay Singha is an asshole.
Yeah, so that's why I think this little part of this thing is a people, human beings who are otherwise intelligent. This is my explanation for some people who are otherwise intelligent just going crazy or just acting like assholes, being socially inept. This is my explanation for it. I mean, a lot of people are free to disagree. I think a lot of people disagree. But
no, for me, what I've experienced also with people who are super intelligent, it's just that it's not so much that they have a debate about it, but it's just that if you can't keep up, they're impatient. So they're like, I can't have a conversation with you because you just can't keep up. So I'll just ignore you and find somebody who can work on the same wavelength as I can.
And you can't, what I'm saying is you can't afford to do that if the other people are your peers. Because you have to keep in good terms with them because you derive a survival advantage from other people. But just like a business executive who is very rich won't have to worry about that, a person who is super intelligent won't have to worry about it.
You'll have.
We can dispute with that.
Yeah, whenever you're ready to dispute for sure. But do you want to take a shot at defining both intelligence and power for the group?
How do you derive power from intelligence?
No. How would you like to define both those terms?
Well, intelligence is the ability to solve a problem. The faster you solve a problem, the more intelligent you are.
Right?
I'm good.
Yeah, intelligence is the ability to solve a problem. There's nothing else.
That's
More
it.
intelligent
Is
means
that
you
it?
call it faster.
Maybe intelligence is it's expert power. It's the knowledge of being able to perform in whatever area you are at a
No, that's
higher
practice. That's
level.
muscle memory. I mean, like a chimp could be intelligent then. Like
Not necessarily.
a dog could be super
Genetic
intelligent.
as well.
You know. Dogs run better than we do. Are they more intelligent than us? Intelligence, how quickly you solve a problem.
So I mean,
Is that your definition?
I think in
Sorry.
this case, what it's more
No,
like
it's
Or
more
it's
of
how
a-
much you know.
it's more about social intelligence, right? Or
No. This is more like what you measure in a traditional IQ test.
Okay, right.
That kind of
so you mean
intelligence.
the capacity to
So,
to learn.
yeah.
So,
So,
retain knowledge, process knowledge, do something with knowledge, that level, that
That's
type
also
of
why IQ tests are
Like-
timed. Because otherwise everyone will solve it.
Well, yeah, I think you're talking about expert power there. The ability to supersede your peers in that field.
See, what I was thinking was this raw processing power in the brain.
he's talking raw processing.
It's more like how some people have more of a certain type of muscle fiber, and like if they trained as much as someone who had less, like if someone had a bit of fast twitch muscle fibers and he trained the same amount as someone with less fast twitch muscle fibers, he'd be a faster sprinter, the guy with the better muscle fibers. Like that, like I think what he means is intelligence as in the people with the capability or the capacity to become more intelligent by innate.
And are you sticking to the same definition of power that you were earlier, which is the ability to? It's a very independent definition of power you
It's
use.
a bit fuzzy, but what I'm trying to say is basically the ability to
Self-sustain, yeah.
survive, yes.
But survive in groups or
Survive on your own.
because
I mean, in modern society, for us, it would be making more money.
Yeah, money is independent from people. You don't have to care what anyone thinks or if you pay cash, you get what you want.
so the ability to create
So
wealth.
let me give you a personal example. Like 10 years ago, I was just an engineer. Right now, I have like 30 engineers under me, and I have to constantly keep myself from being an asshole. I'm not joking.
You're failing! You're failing!
It's, there are things that I could not say to people, would not think about saying to people who were not performing 10 years ago, which I feel like saying now because I can get away with it. That's what I mean. So if somebody like me were to go on that path without actually any self-reflection, you will end up in a point where you can just get away with so many times that your empathy pathways will just start to go.
So the conjecture is that power equals asshole, and asshole equals intelligence, therefore asshole equals intelligence.
Sometimes it's not like a hard equal sign, but there is a tendency. That is, so again, conjecture, not proven. I think to me that explains a lot of things that personally that me and a lot of you may have been experiencing, especially in groups that are intelligence oriented or certain type of expertise oriented. I believe this is why we attract a certain percentage of people who tend to be socially deviant, if I may use the diplomatic term.
It's talking about the dark side, people! The dark side!
Companionship, you can buy that
So,
too.
Even a smart guy, dude.
so yeah, but this is sort of how intelligent people sort of see themselves,
Really?
or sometimes,
Oh, we've got a slide of
You watched that movie, right?
or like this.
No, Darth Vader!
This is what you think that you see, what you are, but a lot of the time
Is that the Royal Tenenbaums?
you are more like this. You are not the super genius, but more often
Are there cats there for a reason or they
I just pick the picture out of the internet.
You're not supposed to make sense.
That's why assholes anyway, we all know that.
No, not everybody knows this character, I suppose. Kevin Cooper.
The gay guy, right?
Okay, I'll say it more.